On today's Chasing the Game, we're talking the Super Bowl. Kansas City and Philadelphia are heading to New Orleans, and so will a group of students from Bowling Green State University. Chasing the Game starts right now. It's the biggest American sports event of the year. The Super Bowl is in New Orleans in a few weeks, and BGSU Sports Management Alliance is sending about 24 people to the game, working different events and serving fans in the week leading up and learning firsthand how a major event gets pulled off.
I think this is an amazing opportunity.
It's very exciting. It's kind of surreal.
I'm very anxious for it, but I am beyond excited.
I'm excited, nervous, emotions are all over the place.
I'm kind of nervous. This is actually my first trip alone without my family or anyone else.
Most years the Super Bowl is in a warm climate, and that's usually true about New Orleans. But this week's historic snow has the group double-checking the weather app.
I told them basically be prepared for, highs of 60, 70, and then potentially lows in the 20s. So almost like packing for 2 seasons.
On top of that, the group hasn't forgot about the terrorist attack on Bourbon Street New Year's Day. They know security is always increased in and around the Super Bowl, but they expect even more of it this year.
Yes, I want them to have fun. Yes, I want them to have a positive learning experience. But the top priority for me is their utmost safety.
Obviously, there's always that worry, like something's going to happen, but having gone before and knowing the amount of security, I feel very safe and secure going with them.
Even after all that, the group is still excited to work in one of the biggest sports events in the world and hopefully turn that experience into a career.
Some, after graduation, use this experience to leverage, full-time jobs. It's a great opportunity, great learning opportunity, resume builder.
And welcome into Chasing the Game. I'm here with BGSU professor Caitlin Shortridge. Caitlin, it's been a little minute.
Yeah.
How has it been since I last talked to you when we did that package? You guys are still obviously getting ready for what is a huge trip for you guys, the Super Bowl in New Orleans this year. Just tell me all about it. How exciting is it just on the baseline?
Yeah, so we leave on Monday and, always just checking and making sure things are done, but really excited. I mean, the students are getting more and more excited. Today I sent out a form for their favorite pizza toppings because we're going to try and do a team meal. And so, just those fine little details, finishing those up, but really excited. And, now they know the teams that are going to be there. Some maybe preferred some other teams being there, but they're just excited about the experience, and I'm excited for them.
Absolutely. Before we even started, you were talking about Super Bowl in 2026, 2027. How early are you preparing for this trip? It's got to be months and months in advance, right?
Yeah, I jokingly tell the students, give me 1 week after we get back from the previous one, and then we can start talking about the next one. But in reality, I, as the advisor, am always thinking as many steps ahead as possible. So we know it's in California the next 2 years. So even thinking about what's that going to look like financially. But we start kind of formally planning with the students involved probably around June, start looking into hotels. So maybe a couple months, and then we'll be really hitting the ground running, getting ready for 26, probably not 27 quite yet, but yeah, very early planning.
What's that fundraising like? I know you guys do so many different things to try to raise money for it. It is not a cheap trip. It's something that you guys spend a lot of time working on. What's the fundraising like? Yeah,
it's an animal, and depending on the group size, that really, quantifies how much money we need to raise or try to raise. For me, my goal is to get them as close to zero as possible. This year, the trip in total, considering ground, travel, airfare, and food, it's just under $50,000 for a group of 25, so about $2,000 per person. We have been graciously given support by the College of Education and Human Development, by the School of Applied Human Development. We've gotten some donations via other outlets, but they do a lot of work too. They were out, slinging grilled cheese sandwiches late at night, trying to raise funds that way. They've worked various other events, through AVI Food Systems. They are doing Super Bowl squares right now, so kind of a chance opportunity based on scoring for people to win gift cards to local retailers. So we think of as many things as possible. We sold roses on Sweethearts Day or Sweetest Day. So really anything and everything, but outside support from sponsors, donors, anything like that is graciously appreciated. And again, trying to get that number as close to zero as possible to make it a reality for as many students as possible.
Yeah, so fast forward, you guys get there, you're in New Orleans, you touchdown. What is that week like? You guys spend a week there in New Orleans. What are you doing? Kind of tell me all about that.
Yeah, so we get there about 3 p.m. Central Time on Monday. We start pickups at 4 a.m. in Bowling Green, so very early start, but we'll get our rental cars, so again, prearrange those, and then we'll go pick up our gear because some of the students will be working with the host committee as like airport captains, a great leadership opportunity, but we really hit the ground running as soon as we get there. So airport, get their luggage, get in a car, go check in at the hotel. We turn right back around. We go to opening night, which is actually hosted at Caesar Superdome. So it's kind of like a merging of the two teams for the first time. So they get to see the space, be in the space, but also get hyped up for the week that's to come. And then they'll do Super Bowl Experience, which is basically the NFL's playground. So a lot of fan activation, marketing, interacting with people that may be going to the game, may not be going to the game, younger fans, older fans. Like I said, the airport shift. We'll have some trainings on site to make sure we're prepared for that. And then game day, we will actually be working kind of the afternoon shift, about 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. Long day. We do get breaks, which is great. And so we'll kind of be within the perimeter, making sure people are finding their way around, helping security out, see something, say something, and then just being flexible and available as needed. This being my third trip, in the past 2, I've seen students, get pulled inside the stadium. Some of them got to help kind of usher in Rihanna's backup dancers, and they got like photos with them. I'm very jealous, but really anything and everything goes. They just have to be ready and kind of quick on their feet and ready to say, yeah, like how can I help?
How many students around the country, around the world, how many people are volunteering for an event like this? I don't know if you know the scale of it, but it's got to be, what, in the thousands?
Thousands. I mean, we just had a training the other day, and it was for Fans First, which is their initiative to promote putting fans first. And on that call, there were just under 900 people. And that was just a Zoom call. Right. And, hundreds of universities send students. I jokingly say the Super Bowl is ran by college students. Yes, they're the executives in the NFL and the other very important people. But when you look around, there's a lot of young professionals or people getting ready to go into their professional career. We actually, kind of have an email chain going between advisors and faculty that are chaperoning these trips. So yeah, I mean, several hundred schools, go into this. I can't give you an exact number, but, it's pretty safe to say there's a lot of college, young professional energy in that space, which is, I mean, I can't think of a better learning experience personally.
Yeah. Do you notice a difference from the people who haven't gone on this trip before? They get into that event, they come out of it. Do you feel like there's a sort of awareness that they didn't have before, that now they kind of understand the sports marketing industry a lot better now because of that experience?
Yeah, I think working with the students, so this is almost my 4th full year. I started in 21 as the advisor, and I've been with them ever since. But I think the best way to learn is to do. So kind of my catchphrase is do the things. So what better way to do the things than go and work the Super Bowl? And we have lots of other smaller scale or different scaled events that students get to do throughout the year, Final Four, working with the athletics department at the university. But to be on such a large scale, I think, they see firsthand like what happens when things go wrong, what happens when things go right. In an ideal world, everything would run smoothly, there would be no issues. But sports, athletics, large events with hundreds of thousands of people, those are never going to run perfectly. So I think them being on the ground and kind of being the hands and feet that facilitate that really gives them that like first person experience that then they can take back and then put into the other work that they're doing at the university, in their internships, in the jobs that they may have presently or in the future. So 100%, I think this trip and many others that the program does and SMA does as an organization really gives them that first person experience to, see what happens like in live time. So yeah, I definitely think it's a great learning opportunity for them to kind of put it into action.
Yeah. Do you notice, and you touched on something there, about things going wrong. And you touched on many things, but about stuff going wrong. And that, I think, particularly for this Super Bowl, there's security issues. There's just touching on the security issues. Obviously, we mentioned that in the package, the attack on Bourbon Street. Obviously, security is always at a premium for the Super Bowl. I imagine it's going to be, as great as it's ever been for any Super Bowl.
Yep.
What do you anticipate? What have you told your students? I know we've talked about this before. What are kind of the conversations?
Yeah, so if you haven't picked up, they do a lot of things. So we actually had one of our pre-travel meetings at 10 p.m. one night. And so during that meeting, we were talking about, when are the flights leaving? When are we doing this? When are we doing that? But really to drive home the main point, I finished on talking about safety and really spent a good chunk of time talking about that. So, buddy system, making sure you're traveling with somebody. We're not going anywhere alone. You're not going somewhere and not telling, Professor Shortridge or Shortridge. They like to just call me by my last name, which is fine. But making sure that they're holding themselves accountable, but also, having that other person's back. We travel in packs, but also, in my past 2 years of making this trip and going with these students, it really is a top priority for the NFL to make sure everyone, whether it's players, teams, fans, are safe. So I have no doubt that they have more than enough safe measures in place. But I also, tell the students and emphasize you're representing not only yourself, but the Sport Management Alliance organization. You're representing sport management for those students that are part of the sport management program. We have some that are business students. We have some psychology with sport interests. But at the end of the day, you're representing not only yourself, but your program, whether it's sport management, SMA, and the university as a whole. So to kind of tie safety back into that, don't do anything silly. Don't do anything that could cause yourself or others harm. And if I haven't driven that home with them, they haven't been listening well enough. So we really make it a point to emphasize that. And I think they receive it well, and they know how prestigious this trip is and how much of an honor it is to go on this trip. So I have not had issues in the past, and I don't foresee those happening anytime soon. They're really a great group of students, and they know their job there is to do their job and to do it well and to represent all those people that I mentioned, represent them well and also represent themselves well.
Yeah, the other thing we mentioned, the weather. I know when we had talked before, it was snowing down in New Orleans. They still, I think to this point, have more snow down there than we have had this winter.
True.
You mentioned something about dressing for 2 seasons. It could be 60s, it could be chilly. How do you sort of prepare for the weather? Hopefully it'll be a lot nicer than it has been the last few weeks. How do you anticipate that?
Yeah, so thankfully we are flying an airline that gives us 2 free checked bags, carry-on and personal items. So if they need to bring a parka and a swimsuit, they have room. But have been regularly checking the weather app. Thankfully, it looks like it's going to be 60s, 70s, maybe a little chillier in the evenings. So we're optimistic that it's going to be warm. So that's kind of where we're leading. But definitely pack some sweatshirts. Make sure you're prepared. And again, if there's a blizzard in NOLA, we can always take care of that and make sure that they're taken care of, and then financially figure it out on the back end. But we should be good to go, and sunny weather and good vibes all around.
Absolutely. SMA, that's been around for some time now.
Yeah.
What is it about, these opportunities? What does that say about BGSU as a school? As a BG alum myself, what does this mean for this university to have opportunities like this? This is obviously something that kind of attracts a lot of people into the sports marketing industries. These big events like the Super Bowl. What's your kind of take on that?
Yeah, I think it really highlights the care and attention that the university puts into living by their missions and their values. And, something you hear a lot is we care about the student experience. We care about preparing students not only for a career, but for life. And so, giving them the opportunity to work in their field of interest. We have freshmen going on this trip. We have sophomores, juniors, seniors, any mix of those students. So first off, I think it really drives home that they do what they say they're about. So if they say they're going to give students opportunities, they're going to give students opportunities. And yeah, it's definitely a great marketing tool. If I was a student coming in for sport management, I'd be looking at the university that sends students to the Super Bowl, absolutely. But again, I think it just echoes that the university, and again, to reiterate, the College of Education and Human Development, the School of Applied Human Development, they care about their students and they care about them deeply to provide them those opportunities and to provide those opportunities on a very large scale.
Yeah, you were in director of ops for volleyball back in the day.
Back in the day.
Where does this rank for you? College volleyball versus a Super Bowl trip. How do they compare?
Man, that's a tough card to deal me. I loved my experience as the director of ops, and I think as the advisor to SMA and generally overseeing this trip while making sure the students get their hands in there and that experience. It's really prepared me greatly. I'd like to think I did a good job as the director of ops. And so having kind of that operational brain really helps with the trip. I don't want to put one over the other. Really, for me, at the end of the day, are the people that I'm serving having a good experience? In volleyball, were my student athletes, were my coaches, was our athletic trainer, were our athletic admin? Was I doing my job well enough for them to have a good experience? And same thing with SMA, with the Super Bowl. Am I doing my job well enough as an advisor so that when you get on the trip and when you end up in New Orleans, are you gonna have a good experience? So I'm not gonna put one over the other, right? The internet's forever, but I think they both have prepared me well for various things that I've done in life. Obviously, volleyball coming first helped set me up for the Super Bowl. The Super Bowls helped set me up for other things that I faced in my professional journey. But yeah, I think they're both just wonderful experiences. And again, both from BGSU, so.
Absolutely. All right, you guys leave on the Monday before the Super Bowl. You're down there in New Orleans.
Yeah.
You're leaving Monday or Tuesday afterwards?
Tuesday after.
Tuesday after, and then you're right back to BGSU. You guys are back to classes. And
back to classes.
And the grind never stops.
Yeah, grind never, no, it does not stop. Like I said, 1 week after that, then you can talk to me about, the next Super Bowl, Super Bowl 60.
All right.
But yeah. They're going to be great.
And we'll be looking forward to the Super Bowls
Absolutely.
in 2026 and 2027.
There we go.
Caitlin Shortridge, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. This is awesome.
Thank
You've
you.
been great. All right, that's going to do it for another edition of Chasing the Game. Be sure to check out our other episodes on the WTOL 11 Plus app. We'll see you next time.